We are live once again. Everybody knows every Tuesday at 8, the MCW Cast, and double digits, episode 11. I'm Legacy MCW announcer, Larry Legend.
I'm MCW promoter, Dan McDevitt.
And I'm Tara. Welcome to the show.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. And thank you once again. We always like to start by just thanking all of the support. Keep it coming, guys. We want to see that Ask MCW Cast, that hashtag to use. We want to feel you interacting with us, and thank you especially to our coffee club members.
That's right. Mo and Lisa bought us coffee last week again. Thank you so much. You're also a member of the coffee club, and we thank you for your support. And you, too, can join by going to buymeacoffee.com/MCWcast. And you will get, as one of your perks, if you become a member, you will get firsthand access to ask all of our guests in studio each week any question that you desire. So, well, within reason anyway. Questions will be pre-screened. But, yeah, so if you want to have an insider route to asking our guests questions, you want to join that MCW Cast coffee club.
And that's a heck of a perk. Imagine if we gave our listeners, our viewers, opportunities to get in and ask Leo Rush, our first guest.
Exactly.
I mean, he was one of our most high-profile guests. If you had something you wanted to ask John Menadakis, Kimberly Klasick, the plethora of guests we had, the way that you can get a head start on even before the episode airs, becoming a Coffee Club subscriber.
And if you're watching, too, don't forget, share this on Facebook, share the feed.
Yeah.
And if you're watching or if you're consuming your podcast content via audio, you can listen on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, SoundCloud, Spotify, Stitcher, and all other podcast platforms.
That's right. Yeah. So, Terry, did you have anything you were about to contribute? I'm sorry. I just always am jumping the gun here.
No, I was fine. Okay. I was just looking over the things we were talking about. You know, we had guests in here last week. We had referee Becky Phillips and Nick Camarado from AEW. So it was great having them in here to talk about them.
Yeah, great insight for me. Once again, I kind of get to take a trip down the legacy that a lot of your wrestlers and personalities have been able to carve ever since, I kind of went off into other pastures. So, again, with Ref Becky and Nick, they kind of came around, and I was kind of here in and out, so it was so great to hear their origin stories, and just giving those shout outs to Keener and all the different things that Nick tried before he hit the nail. It was a great chat with them.
Mm-hmm. Don't forget about one of our original referees. We were just talking about him before the show started.
D. Edwards. Oh yeah, how can we forget D. Edwards? And but another legacy MCW alumni, and has gone on for great things. I'll tell you, one of the best things in the world. I don't know how many people have been able to experience this, but if you ever are in the backstage area of the Royal Farms Arena, there is a picture up there of Sheamus giving someone the white noise or the whatever his move is, and Derek is the referee. So right back there, you know how arenas will put just different moments of, when Prince played, when Michael Jackson was there. There's a WWE moment in the backstage area of Baltimore's own D. Edwards, or,
kidding.
Yeah, right there refereeing in the Baltimore arena. And it was really something to behold, just being back there and being like, I know that guy,
That's funny.
And he's not the feature of that. It's just it's Sheamus and whoever doing whatever, but damned if Derek ain't right there, just hyping it up, with that signature. Oh my gosh,
I'll never forget when he was here, him doing the worm in the ring.
Oh my gosh, that was over.
I feel like that night he embraced that. He was like, yes, I was born to do this. That's like one of my favorite memories of him.
Yeah.
Speaking of shows, and did you have any shows this weekend?
This weekend, no, I didn't have anything actually. There were a few things that went on, but I was homebound. So
yeah, we saw Delaware. Had a couple indie shows this weekend, so the state of Delaware is officially opened up.
DCW had their first show
That's right,
in a
you were
year.
there, Tara, right? Mm-hmm. So what did they do protocol wise?
Actually, it was very similar to what we do for training. It was exactly the same. Everybody had masks on, temperature checks, sign in at the door.
The fans had to do temperature checks?
Yes,
when they came in?
All the workers had to have temperature checks and a negative COVID test within 3 to 5 days or something like that. In between each match, they wiped down the ring just like we do. They sprayed it with Lysol, same as we do. So the protocols were were very much similar to exactly what we've been modeling since we reopened
With training,
in June
right.
for training. Mm-hmm.
But
So
that was
good.
the first. They were the
That
first
was the
wrestling
first
shows in the state
yeah.
of Delaware.
That was
yeah.
the first in
So-
the year. They had a sold-out crowd, I'm told, and so that was.
But sold out with limited capacity, right? Right. In other
Yeah,
words,
so
it
the way
wasn't.
they did the seating, and I was thinking about this, the way they did the seating was they grouped it by kind of like the way WrestleMania is doing pods for tickets. And so you bought your seats and then you were clumped together. So the seats were not 6 feet apart, but each group or clump of seats purchased together was 6 feet about 3 feet from the person next to them. So they kept it kind of that way.
Right.
So the idea being, if you have one sick person in your cluster, then that sick individual will only get, the folks seated in that cluster
That are with you.
Yeah, and everybody had to
Yeah.
wear a mask at all times, except if you
Okay.
were eating and drinking, and you could only do that sitting in the seats. So much like the same protocol we have in the state of Maryland for dining in restaurants, you can only take your masks off while you're at the table consuming. So, you didn't see people milling about, I mean, it felt pretty good. I mean,
Well, we're inching there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Little
we're
by
getting
little,
there.
it's gonna-
Yeah, I was taking notes the whole time I was watching, just, thinking of how problems we might encounter when we reopen to fans and looking at things like that. But yeah, definitely their protocols were very much in line with what we've been doing here since June. So that's good. And I hope more companies will adopt similar protocols. Like even just that step of, sanitizing the ring in between matches is really common sense.
Yeah.
I mean, we should do that anyway. It shouldn't be because we have a pandemic. Like we should spray the ring in between matches and wipe them down. Just
Well, I mean, that's how I first noticed Cheeseburger or world famous CB when he was training, he was the rope wiper at ROH, and when they used to do it there, when you'd go down the ropes, you'd hear the fans go, "Oh, oh," and it became almost kind of a shtick,
All right.
Well,
Well,
we've done that for years, even before the pandemic. We were always pretty cautious with sanitizing.
Yeah.
But was it like Samoa Joe got a staph infection from a dirty canvas?
That's
Yeah.
correct.
Right?
Yeah. So wiping down the ropes. Also, they're oily.
Right.
If it's Tom
Right,
Brady
and if they're
with all
just
that,
like sweat or if there's any kind of blood, you don't know where the splatter's been.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, we have it now where I've actually duct taped a box of wipes to every ring post. So,
There you go.
for training, because, I don't want it to be out of sight, out of mind. I want to make sure these things, like I said, these are just basic hygiene things that people should do anyway,
Yeah. Well, this is
So-
where we are now, but I wouldn't be surprised if before long it starts to become a standard that you've got to actually show your vaccination card before even being admitted into the building, Like, it kind of is an annoying thing to me. Right now, a lot of folks in America are getting vaccinated, but this kind of posturing online, like showing my vaccination card, which the news says you're not supposed to do because there's some sensitive information on there
Well,
anyway.
you see people putting their thumbs over top of the identification.
Right,
Yeah.
right. You see that, but is it really all that necessary?
Well-
Something that's that private, someone like me, a member of the LGBTQ community, there was types of things that were prevalent or they thought were mostly prevalent in my community. You didn't see everyone, flashing up, hey, got my test, to more or less shame or guilt people who aren't eligible or who can't get it just yet,
Well, but also it could be it could be a sense of pride. It could be also to encourage,
or to get the likes, to get the love and the care, because I bet you that if that wasn't a part of it, then would you really be so, hey, look at me, guys, look at me and like what I'm doing. So, it's
Yeah.
just dissenting, and I feel like that a lot of times we're very agreeable here, but I just want to mention that before long, I wouldn't be surprised if someone posted the other day that was like, so do I need to carry my vaccination card around with me? Like if I'm driving from state to state, so if I get stopped, like the state trooper doesn't go, you aren't showing records that you've been vaccinated, to jail with you, or to the quarantine we set up for only people like you,
Other countries are starting to implement what they call vaccine passports. So I don't know if that'll be something that, might be required at some point for travel or, I don't see that ever happening in this country. People are very firmly of one opinion or the other when it comes to this kind of thing. But I could see it being an issue for people from this country traveling to other countries where they are doing this. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I'm fully vaccinated now and I've got my card in my wallet. I don't really know where else to put it. So So I just keep it in my wallet with my insurance card, and that's that.
That's the point I'm trying to make. We might need to have like a way to carry it around so that you're not just posting pictures on Facebook for likes, but you actually are showing, hey, I got the Moderna or the Pfizer.
I didn't post my picture on Facebook with my card. I posted me outside the vaccination site.
It's your prerogative, and I'm okay with it. But I just kind of am like, what is this? Especially because I know some of these people that are doing this, and I know that what
you know why they're doing it.
Exactly.
Okay.
So. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Interesting conversation.
Well, a good show lined up this week.
Yes.
We had our first couples episode last week.
That's right.
It probably made sense to follow up with another couples episode.
Hey, why not? One good turn deserves another, is the old saying. And with that said, we're going to have two of ROH's brightest stars that you can see weekly on ROH TV. The last ROH Top Prospect winner ever, Big Dak Draper, and the lovely Quinn McKay. They're going to be here with us just in a minute on the MCW Cast.
We hope you're enjoying this week's episode of the MCW Cast. At MCW Pro Wrestling, much like many small businesses throughout the country, the pandemic has presented many challenges. For a company like ours that hosts events with live audiences, the impact has been even more severe, and all of our forms of revenue have been cut off. In order to continue to engage with our fans on a regular basis, we made the decision to begin to produce the MCW Cast and are providing it for absolutely no cost on Facebook Live, Twitch, YouTube, and SoundCloud. If you'd like to support us during these challenging times, you can do so in several ways. The most popular way is to buy us a coffee to help fuel the cast. Just go to buymeacoffee.com/MCWcast, and for just $3, you can buy the cast a coffee. Or you can choose to become a member of the cast for just $5 a month and receive several special perks. That's buymeacoffee.com/MCWcast. You can also contribute directly on Cash App, MCW Wrestling, or on Venmo, MCW-Wrestling. You can also show your support for the MCW Cast while sporting some great gear by going to teespring.com/stores/MCWcast to pick up a full line of official MCW Cast merchandise, from coffee mugs and face coverings to t-shirts and sweatshirts. Also, don't forget to comment in the threads on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch to get your questions answered on a future episode. And you can also send us a tweet using the hashtag AskMCWCast. Thank you for your support, and now, back to the show.
And we are back live, episode 11. Our guests have joined us, Quinn McKay, Dak Draper. Welcome to the MCW Cast.
Hi, thanks for having us on.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
We're thrilled to have you. Our couples weeks continue, coming off of Nick Camarado and Ref Becky, and we're glad to have both of you in the studio with us.
We've never been on a podcast together before.
No, never.
Really?
We might get in an argument during this. So. Be
That's
warned.
okay. We like to keep it real. It's fine. We were told we need to have a little more controversy anyway.
These sparks.
It's fine.
Controversy puts butts in seats. Well, ear pods in air.
There you go.
They'll be watching.
So you guys, that's what the big concern was too when Tara said something about having you guys on. But you guys are open about your relationship, like on social media and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
we didn't know whether it was like, are they allowed to talk about being a couple on air?
There's lots of secret relationships in wrestling.
It's never really been
We used to be.
Yes.
We used to be, yeah. It's never really been discussed because obviously we're not used on camera as a couple, but it's not like we try to like skirt around it or hide it either. So I don't think that there's been like a direct order. about
Yeah.
it.
So if it's like an official like Ring of Honor thing, we're not going to hit you over the head with, hey, we're dating. We're not going to be holding hands on TV or anything.
Now, were you a couple before Ring of Honor?
Yeah.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
I think that's why it's not that big of a deal
Right.
because like we came in already as an item.
First moment she saw me, she couldn't resist.
That's not.
The king of Kansas City.
Oh my gosh. I'm assuming that we'll get into that, but
Yeah, is that well? Let's get into it. How'd you guys meet?
So there was a company in Kansas City called the NWL, and it got started in 2017. The first show was like January 5th, 2017. And this guy, he was like a multimillionaire, and he wanted to start. It's almost like UWF with that was the one with Herb Abrams, right?
Yeah, he was signing people to contracts.
Yeah, he was signing people to
remember
contracts.
hearing about
people were
that guy.
paid salaries.
That's what I remember hearing about that
His
guy.
I had health
apartment-
insurance.
He had
It was
health
crazy.
Are you
insurance.
serious?
His
Yeah.
apartment was paid
Yeah.
for. He
What?
received a salary on top of it. It was a sweet gig, but it was a small not even an independent. It was a small fed in the middle of Missouri. So
like I'd liken it to if like an old WWE developmental like FCW or OVW, if they ran without the backing of WWE, where it was like we ran every weekend. We had 2 shows every weekend, and we'd be in we'd film. We'd typically be in like so we'd have an off week where it was like not for TV. It was just live event, and we'd be in a satellite town outside of Kansas City, like
Joplin or St. Joe or
like those those like 100,000 people to like 250,000 people towns. Like we'd be there, and
including
then
Springfield, where I'm from.
And then every other week we'd have one TV taping in Kansas City, and then the other day would be like another satellite town. So you're wrestling twice a week, and you're doing like the whole setup thing. Like all the wrestlers are setting up the ring, and but if you were one of the we had 5 full-time guys. If you were one of the 5 full-time guys, they took really good care of you.
Wow. Now, was it only broadcast locally?
No. Yes, but so it was broadcast in Missouri and Kansas, and I think parts of Illinois. Right before we went under, we had just struck a television deal with the Gulf states.
Oh.
Yeah, so like down like Mississippi and Alabama and like Florida.
There.
It was like, and it was getting good numbers and stuff.
Yeah.
It was really popular in the area, in like that Missouri area. Like I got recognized I was also the guy there. How could you not recognize me?
Commercials.
Yeah.
Whole 9.
Oh man, there's a. Sorry, I leaned a little close to the mic there.
People probably still think Dak Draper lives there.
Yeah, there was this car lot, this used car lot, Auto Start. And they loved having me on their commercials. So there was one where I body slammed Bad Credit, and there was one where I held Bad Credit, and the owner of the car lot, who was like a really good athlete, he drop kicked Bad Credit, and I beat up a bad finance manager once, and it was always shame on you if you go anywhere else.
Yep.
Wow.
And so I'd see people all the time, like just around Kansas City, and they'd be like, "Hey, shame on you if you go anywhere else." And it was
funny.
So
I did a car commercial here years ago, and I did not get that kind of recognition.
Well, you probably should have concentrated a little harder on doing a better job.
We filmed it at Bone Breakers.
Yeah,
you remember
yeah.
that for that dealership out in Dundalk? Yeah, we filmed it at Bone Breakers. It
Oh,
was the first time I'd ever
Easy
been in
Rider
there.
or something
I don't know
like
what
that.
it was, but it was
I
like,
think I do remember
we
that.
need you to
vaguely.
stand there at the ring and
JD
look
by
great.
Rider or
JD
something.
by Rider. That's it.
That's it, yeah.
Yep.
And we did Jerry's Toyota too. Was it Jerry? No, whatever one is right there on Merritt Boulevard. But anyway, yes, you do get like local recognition and stuff. Like people love car commercials.
So was that just like was that a
They
money
do, they
guy that
stick
was a
in your
wrestling
mind.
fan?
So
that started that?
Yeah, he was a money guy who was a wrestling fan, and he was an old school wrestling fan. So it was like he was like I don't want to say old school like territories, but he was like an '80s WWF fan.
He was like recreating USWA or something like that. Like in his mind, yeah.
It was kind of like that because I was wrestling before in Colorado as Sammy Six Guns, and he wanted everybody to change their names, and that's how I became Dak Draper. He wanted everybody to change their names, and so everybody was going to have like a new character, a fresh character. So I was the guy from Colorado. We had some Texas guys. We had some Illinois guys. They tried to pull people. The goal was to pull people from around the U.S. They ended up pulling people from like the far reaches of the Midwest, kind of. They pulled people that weren't typically in like that area in, and it was really popular. And the big thing for me was it gave me a way to focus full-time on wrestling when I wasn't popular enough to focus full-time on wrestling. I was working 50 to 60 hours a week at a big box gym in management. And so there would be times where I would go like, for example, I did a lot of Future Stars of Wrestling shows in Las Vegas. And there would be times where I'd come in super early on a Saturday morning to the gym, sell a couple gym memberships, and then haul ass in my car to Denver to fly to Vegas, wrestle in Vegas that night, and then either take a red eye back to Denver or fly back first thing in the morning, and then I would close the gym on Sunday. And it was like that was just like my life. I was so exhausted, and like I was either cooking, working out, working at the gym, or wrestling, and getting trying to squeeze sleep in when I could. And so it was really cool for me to be able to have that backing where it was like I just got to focus on like wrestling and training. And so like I'm incredibly thankful for it, but and I'm also incredibly thankful that I got to meet my girlfriend. I don't want to forget that.
Quinn, did you work for that company too?
I forgot that I was on this podcast for a second.
A lot of people did.
No, Quinn, you're unforgettable.
I did. Thank you, Larry. Yeah, I did work for that company. So I was an on-screen person. I had just started as an on-screen personality in the foundation, not the foundation
blue-haired
in
girl.
Ring of Honor, but the foundation that was a stable at NWL that was actually Michael Strider, Jeremy Wyatt, and Ace Steel. And so I was like a bad guy, like secretary character sort of to Matt Jackson at the time, and was in the foundation. Was
Not Young
wreaking
Bucks Matt
havoc.
Jackson, a different Matt Jackson.
But I wasn't wrestling yet because I also, like, the reason I ended up at NWL was because I wanted to train there. I had started training at a really small school in Arkansas, and I trained there for probably like 3 or 4 months before I ring announced my first show for them, where I met Ace Steel, and Ace was like, listen, I think you've got a lot of potential. We need to get you out of Arkansas and into Kansas City. And I was like, okay, cool. And then I went and saw my very first show in Kansas City, and where he had a match. And I think that was the gimmick where you had like just broken Blaine Meeks' leg or something. Something like that.
Yeah, it was a guy who has actually wrestled at MCW before, Bolt Brady.
we know Bolt.
Brady.
Yeah.
So Bolt's Bolt was the one that when I found out about that promotion, he called because he was gonna move up here, and I had really liked him and start using on some shows, and then he called me. He was like, "Oh, Dan, I got signed to a contract with someone," and I was like, "What?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And he was like, "Oh, it's a big," you know what I mean? That's how I had actually heard about this company starting up, and was like, "I never heard of this. Where'd it come from?" He's like, "Oh yeah, I get health insurance and all that stuff."
Well, it's
Cool
so it's so funny because like they were around for 16 months, so almost a year and a half, and they ran probably about 80 shows. We ran a lot of shows.
That many, really?
Yeah,
it was.
And by the time we shut down, like we were packing houses, we were selling.
2018,
out
every show
single-
sold
So
out.
why did they shut down?
We don't know.
Too much
He
front end money
literally-
put out, probably.
Probably.
Okay.
He
Something
walked
like-
in- Can we say this?
I don't know. Something like 80%. Yeah. Oh yeah, you can totally about how it ended.
He literally just walked into the office on a Wednesday morning and went, "Okay, we're closing down. Everybody gets one more paycheck," and that was it.
Wow.
And like we had a
No explanation, nothing.
we had a sold out show that Friday,
We were about to open an arena.
and
Really?
there's still an arena in Kansas. I don't know if it's still there
That's-
now, but like the last time we were there 2 years
It was
ago,
still branded NWL. Like the cars were still wrapped
yeah,
out front.
it's like almost like
Wow.
like
An abandoned
and
music
like a
hall.
collapse, like a societal collapse happened, where it's like it looks like this big wrestling show was about to happen. They sold the ring, but everything else. The last time I looked, it's been like 2 years since I've been to
Bleachers had just
KC.
been put- like we bought
The
bleachers.
bleachers
had
were
just put
still
them
in a
together.
square around where the ring was. The banners
kidding.
were still hanging up on the wall, and everything's just dusty in
It's
there.
like a
It was.
time capsule.
It's really.
crazy.
It's kind of eerie.
Wow.
It was probably just way too much front end money.
Yeah.
Rumor is that they spent like 75% of the money they spent the entire time before the first show ever happened.
I believe it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
I believe it.
That's how
I believe
it
it.
goes, a lot of the times. It's funny. You mentioned the Herb Abrams UWF. It kind of reminds me of the Urban Wrestling Federation, too, where there was a promoter that had just a lot of money and was sinking it into this project, bringing people, booking all of this talent from Maryland, Chicago, Atlanta,
California.
Yeah.
bringing them in. And then by the time we got to the first show, you could project how much he had already invested in it, what it
Yeah.
was going to take to do 2 and 3 more. And actually, that's all we got out of UWF was 2 or 3 more shows.
We had just ended up back, like we were starting to be back in the black. And it was just so interesting that once we were finally seeing returns on all of these investments, that he just shut the whole thing down. No warning at all.
But the thing is, regardless, I'm so thankful because
Right.
like I went into it like I didn't go into it as way like I didn't go into it thinking like I'm going to become a huge star from this or anything like that. I went into it thinking I can really get better at wrestling doing
Yeah.
this.
And everybody in the company did. Like they came leaps and bounds.
Oh man, yeah. Viewing it as instead of a destination, viewing it as a trampoline, I think was like the best way to go with that. And the guys who did it, you can see like there's the Regal twins who are on New Japan America
Brody
now.
King, our good friend Brody.
Brody wasn't part of NWL.
No, but they're in New Japan now
Oh.
with Brody King.
with Brody, with Brody.
Like,
Sorry, I
they're
misunderstood
all
you.
over together on the internet.
It's like, when did I miss Brody there?
Yeah, in 25 years doing this, that's the one thing. You see so many people like, I'm going to get into I'm going to start a wrestling company, and people have no freaking idea, even just to run an independent promotion like us, like MCW, that you have just no idea the cost. That's when Ring of Honor, a lot of people would ask me over the years, like, how come you never did what like Ring of Honor did, the way
so
they were
easy.
bought. And that's, I'm like, because it took a company like Sinclair that has billions of dollars to be able to have that upfront cost that I'm sure it took them years You know what I mean? Before
Yep.
they, you start turning a profit. It's like you have no idea the amount of money that it costs, television production and getting on. And it took a company with that much wealth to be able to actually do it and get it off the ground, or AEW, someone like Tony Khan that's a billionaire. And you know what I mean? Like, just it takes that kind of money. It's not something just anybody can do.
You mean you're not a billionaire, Dan? You haven't been holding out on us?
No. Well, that's why I'm not. That's why MCW doesn't have a national television show.
That's why you got to buy us.
He's got billions buried behind the building.
That's why we ask you
Yeah.
to buy us coffee every week.
Well, that leads me to one of my first questions, and it's going to be for you, Quinn. You mentioned that you first started in that small school in Arkansas. Did you initially want to be a wrestler?
Yeah. No,
Okay.
No, that was always the thing. I didn't go in being like, I want to be a backstage interviewer or I want to be a host or an announcer. Like, no, I went in, and it was actually a really hard process because women's, especially this was 5 years ago. So
Wow, 5 years.
there wasn't an independent scene in central Missouri at all. You had to go to St. Louis or Kansas City. I didn't even know that independent wrestling existed until I was in college. Like, I was a WWE fan, and I knew that there were other companies. Like, I knew about ROH and Impact, but I didn't know, well, TNA at the time, I guess. When did that switch over? Anyway, neither here nor there. But I didn't know that independent wrestling, this was something that you could, like, learn how to do and then just do for fun or to hone your craft. So I found out about that, and I was like, oh, man, now we are off to the races. Because when I was in high school, I tried to go to Harley Race's school because I knew Harley Race so I went to school in Eldon, Missouri, which is where Harley's school was at the time before it was relocated to Troy, Missouri, and obviously RIP.
Yeah, the legend.
Right?
Yeah.
But he doesn't train high school students, and my mom was like, I'm not giving you $2,000 to go train to be a wrestler after school.
How mean. How mean of her.
Right? How rude. She was like, you can put yourself through wrestling school whenever you graduate from college. And I was like, okay, cool. But I don't think that was fair because it's not like she paid for my college either.
Yeah, that isn't. Yeah.
Right.
It would be one thing if she's like, I'll fit. You can
Yeah.
get through that. And
No.
So now, were you a lifelong wrestling fan, or was this something you came into later in high school?
So it was something, I remember watching wrestling with my brother whenever I was really young, but he was 15 years older than me. So when I was 3, he shipped out to the Navy and got married and started his own family, which my mom was so mad about. But wrestling kind of ceased to be in my life until I was relocated second semester my freshman year from a very small high school to another very small high school across the state. And I didn't know anybody. And the first girl that I met that I like really vibed with, her name's Mia. She's my best friend to this day. The thing that she did every Monday night with her brother was watch Monday Night Raw. So when I had like no friends and nothing else to do and nowhere to go and just trying to find a place to fit in, like that was wrestling for me. So it became like a really huge part of my identity in my early teens, I guess. And then she was like, well, whenever you graduated from college, you can put yourself through wrestling school. And so that's what I did. That's what I did. But because there are no wrestling schools in Springfield, there's no independent promotion in Springfield to this day, I don't think. Actually, I think the person that runs that school, Jason Jones, might now run in Springfield because I started bringing in so many kids as students. And a lot of the students that he still has now are people that like I brought in to start training there, which is really cool. But yeah, so that's what I did, and that's how I ended up here.
Wow.
I mean, I bring it up because you mentioned that, for that Arkansas place that you started training for. That
Who did not want to train a woman.
I didn't even know they had wrestling in Arkansas.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's small promotions. There's like Fayetteville and Little Rock and stuff like that, which is like a little bit better. Northwest Arkansas is better for independent promotions and stuff. But this is Harrison, Arkansas, which is just over the Missouri-Arkansas border. A very backwoodsy area, I would say. I trained in a room that had no air conditioning or heating, just a big garage, basically.
We're familiar with those.
And the ring canvas was actually vinyl, so I slipped a lot, so that was awful. Hot months were terrible, but it ended up being a good time. But yeah, he didn't want to train a woman because he said that women were flaky. And I mean, he grew on me, and I grew on him, and like now we're great. But I was a trial for sure.
So how soon after you went there to start training did you end up with that ring announcing spot? Because that's where I'm getting to. I didn't know that you
immediately.
So he saw you and he was like, all right, I'm going to make her the announcer. Like I'll give her
much.
that to do.
Because I come from a broadcast background. I have a degree in public relations, and I did radio for 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
See, that's what I wanted to unearth, that
Yeah,
part of the story.
#1 on middays in Springfield, Missouri. I always had very good ratings books.
Right on.
All right.
Okay.
Congratulations.
So we want to get to
Yeah.
Dak too, and really what I'm trying to unearth here is like, and what Tara started is, were you following wrestling ever since you were knee-high to a grasshopper? Did you know this was what you wanted to do?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
So when I was a little kid, my dad and I we used to always lay on the ground and we'd watch WWF, and I remember I was too small to really like. I knew that they were like fighting, but I was kind of too small to know what was going on. But the two things that are my two first like sentient memories of wrestling. One was I think it was he was Terry Taylor at this point. He wasn't the Red Rooster anymore, but he still kind of did that like bob when he walked during his entrance, and I just thought it was so cool to see this guy like kind of like strut the way that he strutted out, and like I know
Like a chicken.
yeah, like a lot of people don't say that about like Terry Taylor, but just to see that, I was like, oh man, like because like you could tell he wasn't walking normal. I was like, he's really feeling himself. And I used to look at my shadow when I would walk then, and I would like do different things to see how it made me look when I was like, of course I still do it. Consistency is key. And and then the second one was when Macho Man used to drop that either an elbow or an axe handle off when he'd jump off the apron onto you on the floor. I saw him do that, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I want to be a wrestler." Like I was like that. I thought that was the coolest thing. And then it's really funny because I didn't become a Macho Man fan.
No.
I like somehow that happened. I was like, I want to be a wrestler. I want to be like Razor Ramon. And so like I think it's like that really ignited like me loving wrestling. And then I got a little bit older. Razor Ramon came along, and like. I thought Razor Ramon was the coolest in the world, of course, until I thought Stone Cold was the coolest. Like, I really had like a little identity crisis in between Razor and Diesel leaving, and Stone Cold really catching fire. But it was so yes, I grew up a wrestling fan, and the first time I went to amateur wrestling practice, I was 8 years old, and it was at the Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And my mom signed me up for wrestling camp because she didn't know that it was like, or maybe she did know, and she was trying to kind of push me out of pro wrestling. But she claimed she didn't know. She made me think I was going to pro wrestling camp. Oh. And so I remember I was walking down to the wrestling gym at the Air Force Academy, and I saw the boxing gym, and I was like, oh yeah, this is where I'm supposed to be. And so I was like waiting there, and like somebody, like one of the counselors, like, no, we're in here, and it's this room with the mats, and you had to like jog and stretch, and it was horrible. And we got to like,
It's like something Janet would do.
yeah, it is something she would do. She tricked her poor little son.
Okay, maybe she didn't know there was a difference.
Oh, I bet she did.
Okay.
Well, I was
trying
like,
to-
and there was another kid. So there was this other kid named David that I was friends with, and we were big pro wrestling fans. And I think they were like upset because like I was a little bigger, and I kept like slamming him and kind of hurting him. And so his parents also sent him to wrestling camp, and it was like. He was not going to last in the wrestling camp. Like, I was still good at, like, the wrestling part, like, because I was tough, but he wasn't going to last. And I was like, hey, I want to get moved to boxing camp because I want to be in the ring. And because there were a bunch of different sports camps going on. And my parents were like, no, you can't. You can't switch camps. And David got switched to tennis camp, and I was like, "Actually, you can." And my mom's like, "Well, if you ever want to watch Monday Night Raw again, you have to keep going to wrestling practice. Like that's the trade-off." And so,
I like it.
yeah, it
And
was
look
a
at
compromise.
look at where it led you.
For real.
Right? You know, at the end of the day, it may not have felt good, or you kind of were frustrated at the time, but look at you now.
I'm so thankful that she did that because like it got me into amateur wrestling, which made me such a better athlete, and I grew this love for amateur wrestling too because like you could really and this is also the timing was fortunate.
Watch it all the time.
Yeah, I do watch it a lot still. The timing was really fortunate because that was that's when Kurt Angle really started blowing up too. So you could really see the parallels there with where before I feel like especially for a kid, there weren't a lot of amateur wrestlers like currently on TV because there wasn't YouTube and stuff back then. You weren't seeing a lot of people. We were a WWF house, so you weren't seeing a lot of guys. The Steiners weren't there. The Steiners were in WCW. You weren't seeing a lot of guys on WWF programming who were like in a singlet like a wrestler who were like, oh yeah, this guy wrestled in college. This guy wrestled in the Olympics. So Kurt Angle, I feel like really helped to bridge that gap for me. And so, like, it really helped me to, like, focus on amateur wrestling, and I ended up getting good enough to get a college scholarship, and I wrestled in college. And it's funny because So I didn't know that independent wrestling existed. I thought that if you wanted to become a pro wrestler, you go to the WCW Power Plant or you go to OVW, and that's what happens. Like you probably try and play pro football, and when that doesn't work, you get signed like The Rock did. Like
No,
That's
right.
also
No in-between
my general impression.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're very similar in that.
Yeah.
I found out what Ring of Honor was from the movie The Wrestler. Like,
Really?
so there was this group of guys at my college. So I was like this like college athlete. I was a good college athlete too. And so a lot of people didn't think I was like a big pro wrestling fan. Especially, I feel like a lot of wrestlers, especially when you're young, like that age, are like,
have to
oh no, I don't
pretend
like
you
pro
don't like
wrestling. A lot of amateur wrestlers, like they really try and take a hard stand and like miss something they would enjoy. But there was this group of kids that were pro wrestling fans, and looking back, they were like independent fans and stuff. And I would come talk to them, like, "Oh, did you guys see Edge this week?" And they probably talked so much when I walked away.
Of course
like,
they did, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Because
yeah.
they're like Toryman guys, and
Exactly.
like, you know, at AAA, and like you're talking about,
like,
oh yeah, Raw,
Ooh,
yeah.
live sex show, huh?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
oh,
right.
this guy. And so I watched the movie The Wrestler, and I was like,
What? That's all right. He can
He's
bleep it
getting
out.
into it. He's getting
That's
into
good.
it.
He can
Watch
bleep
your
it out.
language.
You're getting into it, so but you gotta watch your language. You've dropped a couple bombs.
"Oh, my mistake, guys."
It's all good.
That's
I'm
all
loving
right.
it. I'm loving it. But you know what? Actually, this
She's
is
a bad
good,
influence.
Well, this is a good time. Maybe we need to take a quick
We
break.
are going to take a break.
Yeah, we do. So stick with us, and we're going to continue with Potty Mouth Dak Draper.
Sorry about that.
They went over the rules before we started.
Show your support for the MCW Cast while sporting some great gear by going to teespring.com/stores/MCWcast. You can pick up a full line of official MCW Cast merchandise, from coffee mugs and face coverings to t-shirts and sweatshirts. Visit teespring.com/stores/MCWcast. Fuel the MCW Cast by visiting buymeacoffee.com/MCWcast. And for just $3, you can buy the cast a coffee. Or you can choose to become a member of the cast for just $5 a month and get several additional perks. That's buymeacoffee.com/MCWcast.
All right, we're back. So Dak, you were with NXT, WWE. You were signed for a little bit.
Yeah, I was. So it's kind of a funny story. I got offered a tryout right after my last amateur wrestling match. So it was the national tournament in college, the NCAA Division II tournament, and I had just lost the match that would have made me an All-American by 1 point, and it was like a last-second takedown, and it was a last-second takedown, and I was crushed. I'm sitting there in the bleachers. I've got my head down. I've got a towel over my head, and I hear a voice, and it goes, Is that kid that just wrestled? And they're like, yeah. And I hear him go, can he talk? And my coach is like, oh yeah, he can talk. Because like my coach told me going into nationals, he was like, I love how many matches you win. I'm probably not gonna miss having to coach you very much. Because like, you know, I feel like I don't make it easy. I stand up for myself a little bit. Like I've got a personality.
Stand up for himself. He's a flip mouth.
Well, yeah, flip mouth,
know
bad
you have a
attitude, and I know it. I'm proud of it.
It's okay.
Yeah, so especially in amateur wrestling when so many guys just let things slide, like I didn't. And so he's like, oh, yeah, he can talk. And he's like, well, I'm going to be in touch. And he introduced himself to me. It was Jerry Briscoe, former,
Right.
of course, WWE Hall of Famer. And I remembered him from being one of the Stooges from WWF TV when I was a kid, which is like incredibly disrespectful looking back now.
Right,
But like I wasn't even like at that point, like I looked up a lot of Ring of Honor at that point in college because like I really liked the athleticism and just like that style of wrestling. But I wasn't looking back through like Georgia Championship Wrestling and stuff like that. So like I only knew him for what I had seen him and Pat Patterson do in the 90s. And but he offered me a tryout and I went down to they flew me down to Tampa and it was like was still FCW. And it was like you were just in FCW for a week. It wasn't like the tryouts they have now where it's kind of like the boot camp style tryouts. We were just it was like it was me and 3 other amateur wrestlers. And they would just like you kind of sat there during training and then they would have and then they'd have like the new guys get in at like for like the last 30 minutes and they would kind of teach us something. By the end of the day by the end of the week we had learned a tackle, drop down, leapfrog, hip toss. And the only thing I did well was cut a promo. I thought it was going to be so much easier than it was. I thought college wrestling was the toughest thing in the world. And the only thing I did well was cut a promo, but I thought the promo was going to get me signed. And after a month, they called me and they said, it's not going to work out, but we really think you have a lot of potential. We want you to find training, and we want you to find training and stay in touch. And I kind of thought that I was never going to hear from them again, but I really wanted to do this because before that I didn't know how to get into wrestling. So I moved. I was living in Northwest Nebraska at the time where I went to college. By the end of the week, I had moved to Denver to try and get training, and I ended up stumbling into Pat Tanaka, former AWA Tag Team Champion.
Wow.
And so Pat kind of helped me out and really taught me the basics. And it's so funny because Pat, his training was completely in line with WWE's training, because after about 7 months, they reached back out to me and they said, we're looking for guys we think kind of fell through the cracks. We want to offer you another tryout. And they offered me a tryout, and halfway through they pulled me aside and they're like, we're going to make you an offer because you're really crushing it. And it was totally because Pat, I think coming from WWF and just
right.
I feel like he was such a good wrestler. Everything he taught me was literally to the letter to how they were teaching at that time. So it really set me up for success there. I got signed the week before I moved to Tampa. They changed everything over from the FCW branding to the NXT branding. And so I was the first class to come into it with it being NXT. I was in a class with I came in with Scott Dawson, Mercedes, Sasha Banks, Angelo Dawkins and I were roommates. Madman Fulton from Impact. Madman Fulton, Dawkins, and I lived in a 1-bedroom apartment in South Tampa,
Wow.
and it was getting to use the bathroom before we went to training in the morning was it was a battle. I used to try and wake up before them so I could use the bathroom first, because otherwise you weren't getting this one dirty bathroom.
Yeah.
But it was so
Smart.
cool. It was so
I
cool
can't
because
imagine how filthy that apartment must have been.
oh my
I've
god.
had guy roommates before.
Yeah.
I would have been like you though, Dak. I would have been trying to wake up early, 4 in the morning, get in there, get my good hour, and then they wake up, and I'm like, oh yeah, got some good, just kinda...
Early bird gets the worm. Early bird gets to go to the bathroom indoors.
And he's never woken up early since.
But the training was it was cool because I thought the training was awesome too, because we were still in the FCW building in Tampa, and they were getting ready for the move to Orlando. We didn't know it yet, and so the crew was getting smaller and smaller. I think there were probably 60 people there when I started. I think it got pared down to almost 40 before we moved, and those numbers might be off, but it was considerably less people, and so I thought it was really cool because we got pretty individualized training. Where when I came in, I worked with Norman Smiley a lot at first, and so you really got to nail down the basics right, and it was just a lot of repetitions of the basics, and I don't know, I really loved FCW. I loved living in Tampa, and then I'd been there for about a year, and they moved us to the Performance Center, and it was a lot different. There was the cameras were on you more. It was a lot more corporate, and I feel like you had less time. I'm someone who I think I like to use my time well, but she will disagree with that. But I like to
no time management skills whatsoever, none.
I like to be in charge of my own workouts and stuff like that. You can give me a workout to do, but I'd like to go. The gym is therapy for me, and I think it really kind of it affected me to have to get to lift at in the building. You still got the cameras on you. You're still under the microscope.
Yeah.
And I feel like I really lost some my therapy time there, where I'm just thinking by myself. And I would still try and go work out at a commercial gym just by myself to do that. But it's just not you're already tired then, and then there are even less hours in the day when you do that.
I feel like it's impossible to actually learn things whenever you're feeling watched.
Mm-hmm.
Not
Yes.
whenever you're
Yes.
feeling monitored, but whenever you're feeling watched. It's different. You never relax. You don't retain information. It's a really hard environment to thrive in.
I think my best way to describe my time there is I learned so much, and it really, really made me a good wrestling student. But I really felt I got caught in the trap. I got lost in the shuffle because I got caught in the trap of trying to be such a good wrestling student that I wasn't trying to become a good wrestler. And so I got really good at the drills, and I got really good at doing, even in matches, I got really good at doing the things that people wanted, doing the things that they're not gonna yell at you in film because you didn't do anything wrong. But I didn't do enough stuff right where they really wanted to well, let's put that guy on TV. I didn't do anything. I would have fired me too. And
You weren't in a position where you were thinking for yourself. You were just doing what you were taught how to do.
Exactly. I wasn't creating on my own. So when I got released in August or September of 2014. It was a weight went off of me. Like I knew that I was walking in with Juice Robinson into the Performance Center, and the guy who ran the place, he was standing there and he's like, "Hey, before training, just swing by my office real quick." And Juice was like, "Oh no," because he knew that meant that I was getting released, and I did too. And I was like, it was like this weight went off of me. I'd been scared of getting. The first day they told us like, "Hey, you can get fired at any time," and it was always kind of, it was always hanging over you. They were always kind of reminding you that this could be your last day here. And so it was like this weight went off of me where it was like, this is the thing that I've been terrified of for 2 years. And it happened and I'm fine. Like, and so I was just excited to like move on to like the next chapter, like creating on my own. And a guy that I met when I was in developmental was Chris Hero. And Chris Hero became like a huge mentor of mine. And he'd been released a few months before me. And actually like 9 months. And so just seeing how he got to go back out on the indies and he was having so much fun and like this passion for wrestling that it like reignited in him, where like he was always passionate about wrestling. But this like I could never, at that point I could never imagine him being more passionate about wrestling. So when he got released and all of a sudden he loves wrestling that much more, I was like, I want that. I don't want to be scared every time I think about wrestling. And so I was like really excited when I got released because it was like, okay, now I can get good. And and so like on one hand I was like excited to like go out there and get good, but something that I think the Performance Center, being in the Performance Center and being in FCW and developmental so early in my career helped me with was I got used to being coached. And so I think throughout my life, even now, I still try and I'm still like seeking coaching. And I think that's like really important with improving in wrestling because you see so many guys where it's like, okay, they start to get popular on shows, they start to come in and like they're getting a good reaction. They're starting to get booked a lot of places, and they stop training. They stop trying to improve. They'll show up to training and they'll just kind of sit there and watch and maybe throw out a critique or two. When really they should still be in there. They should still be in there getting reps. And I think being at the Performance Center and probably overdoing some training really helped to like form that hierarchy in my mind that you always have to be improving.
Yeah, and Chris actually emailed me about you. I guess when you were moving up this way, it must have been for Ring of Honor. Chris he had emailed me and said, make sure he's moving up to Baltimore.
So
yeah, and he was like, get this guy on your shows, and I was like, okay. So Chris reached out to me.
Yeah, Hero's like I look at him as like a big brother in wrestling to me.
Yeah.
He's a really good guy. So it's funny. I actually didn't move up here for Ring of Honor though.
Oh, it wasn't.
Oh.
You just I can't. I remember the email and him going back and forth, and then I guess it was not too long after that was the dojo or something.
He probably said that though because originally I decided to move to Baltimore when NWL that company in Kansas City when it closed. The moment the owner walked in and said I'm shutting it down, I said, oh, I have to move to the East Coast. Like I knew that I had to move because just the Midwest there aren't a lot of promotions there are promotions in the Midwest, but they're spread out, and I wanted a new challenge, and I knew that I wasn't going to get to the next level that I wanted to get to if I was just hanging out in the Midwest around people that were used to me. And so I knew I was going to have a change of scenery, and I decided Baltimore was centrally located where I could go up to the north, to the super northeast. I could go down to the south, and so I was planning on moving to Baltimore. And like a few weeks before I go, I see this announcement that Ring of Honor is moving the dojo to Baltimore, and I was like, oh, this is perfect. Like the stars are aligning. I had a former coach that was involved, so I reached out to him just to ask if I could come to train because I wanted to make connections. I knew of MCW. Like MCW was one of the places where I was like super high on the list where it's like I want to try and get booked there, and I felt like there are probably guys that are getting booked on all these indies that are training at the dojo, so I can meet these guys and network. And so that was my original reason for going to the dojo was I just wanted to network, and the rest of it has been history.
And you guys were together? Did you guys move up together?
Were you on board with that too, Quinn?
No. So, I was on board, obviously, but we moved out here separately. I originally stayed in Missouri.
Oh, okay.
And I was thinking about getting out to Baltimore, but like I was waiting for something to actually align where it made sense because we were fairly like new in our relationship. We hadn't been together all that long. And so he moved out here,
It was like 4 months before you. I moved out here in I think August of 2018, and she moved out here right around New Year's of 2018.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the plan was like always take it out here, but I didn't know like why or what for. And then eventually it was just to go to MCW. And then I went to a Jonathan Gresham seminar, and I met Gresham, and he invited me to the dojo from there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, but Gresham didn't know that we were together. He'd never met me before. He had only just really started training. Gresham, I mean, he was kind of in and out at the time, right? Like, he wasn't a full-time coach at the dojo yet.
Yeah, I feel like there's like a big theme with us where, especially like early on, we really didn't want, like, she didn't want to start training at the dojo because she was my girlfriend.
Right.
Exactly,
and
right.
we didn't want to be known as, I didn't want to be known as Quinn's boyfriend.
So the goal was to go to MCW.
And she didn't want to be known as Dak's girlfriend. And so she was going to move up here, and she was going to, I had talked to Dean a little bit at MCW. She was going to just start training at MCW. And because also, sidebar, I think MCW is like one of the best like training operations, and I think she agrees with me.
I had only had 2 matches at the time, like by the time I went to Gresham Seminar, so it's not like I had a ton of experience or was a great worker. I was incredibly green. So it was never like I'm gonna end up at the Ring of Honor dojo. It was like, oh, maybe I should take like beginner courses at MCW.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, so
Yeah, and that's one thing that we are very proud of, is that we're one of the more reputable, not only professional wrestling companies on the indies, but we also have the support of that fantastic school. I mean, even this episode, I'm wearing our old Bone Breakers Training Academy, which was my pathway into becoming an announcer and being given a role, and Tara as well. That's just great that, you know, you could shout us out as being one of the premiers in the countries for learning how to train and get involved.
Yeah, and that's I had thought when Chris had emailed me, and then that the dojo opened up, that's why I kind of thought like you guys came in for that and were being brought in for that. It all kind of worked out timing wise. Then it was all just coincidental.
yeah, it was just very serendipitous in the end.
It is one of those. It is one of those things too. It kind of pisses me off when guys from the Midwest reach out to me and are like, "Hey, what's the way into Ring of Honor?" It's like, well, you saw the way that I got in. Like,
Yeah, you packed up and went.
Right.
Like I moved out here without even thinking the dojo was going to be here. I just moved out here to further my career and bet on myself and to get better.
And we did eventually get developmental contracts, but whenever we came out here for the dojo, we were not paid. We did not have jobs. I had no money. Like, it was just, I packed up all of my stuff in my car and I moved across the country for what I wanted to do.
Right.
And if you really want to make something happen, then you'll figure out how to do it.
And that's the truth. That's the, you know, I get bombed because RJ and Dean had kind of become like a gatekeeper for me, and I still get bombed with people. Obviously, we've been down for a year with everything, but I get bombed with people that just send me videos like that are Facebook. Hey, watch this match, watch this match, watch this match. And I just don't watch any of that crap. I got a kid, you know, so I've always said like a guy like MJF is a good, who wasn't our student, but he just showed up here and like started, you know, you get bombed with so much as a promoter, and especially a more reputable indie. Even to get into us as opposed to Ring of Honor is a whole different story. I've always said, like, show up, you know, and help out and jump in. And MJF, and we threw him on. Dean and RJ came to me and was like, look, this guy, he's a good kid. He's got a good look. He's helping set up the ring. He came down from New Jersey. I'm like, yeah, give him a chance. You know, you know what I mean?
You even did birthday parties.
I did
birthday parties.
You just got to
Dak
go
Draper
do
was
it.
on a birthday party today.
Otherwise,
like, I looked at the card and I was like, okay, cool.
As a promoter that gets bombed, you just get lost because I'm not watching.
No.
Yeah.
I'm not watching 50 videos a week of indie wrestlers that want me to watch a match, and you
But
know.
it's harder to ignore someone in person than it is on the internet.
Absolutely, 100%.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
why I mean, just show up, just go. Yeah, it's a way.
Like the long-held secret has kind of been, if you want to get booked on MCW, you show up to the birthday party.
Yeah.
So I get the same people like sending me matches. Oh, I can do this, I can do that. So, you know, we've brought people in to work birthday parties where, you know, we pay you with, you know, Becky's delicious beef stew.
Hey,
but,
that
you know,
Which
That's well worth the
it's well
booking
worth it.
fee.
But,
5 Michelin stars.
we get people that are like, oh, you're not even good enough for a birthday party. I'm sorry. We did not say that to you, obviously.
Dak Draper's here. Let's have a birthday party tryout before the kids
Don't
get
put
here.
him in the birthday match. He's not ready yet. He's not ready to work with an 8-year-old, okay?
Just powerbomb
He's
him.
still green.
Happy birthday, stupid.
You can also probably hear our dog complaining in the background. He just does that.
Oh yeah, that's quite all right.
He takes
That's
after
our,
his
it's our
mom.
third
Maybe we'll
guest on
introduce him in
Yeah.
the,
Half
in
the
the
baby.
next
on the
segment.
show this week.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your time in Ring of Honor now.
Totally.
So, you know, you've had some high-profile matches. You've got one coming up, you know.
Yeah, I mean, your first, I literally, my jaw dropped when I watched that segment. Also want to call out, shout out to Maria Kanellis, Because in my times of watching you do your job, especially with the in-ring segments, typically it's always some big guy grabbing the microphone from you. You get to say your first question, and the first thing they do is take the microphone from you, and my heart goes out to you every time because, like, what are you supposed to do then? Just stand there? They do it to Tony Schiavone right now, I've been noticing on AEW as well.
I've started to take it back.
Thank you. Thank you. But leave it to Maria to be like, okay, this person has a job. What do I look like taking the microphone from them like it's time for me to cut my promo? But yeah, I literally gagged when I found out that it was revealed you are going to be facing Angelina Love. Have you ever had a match in ROH just yet? Yeah, I didn't think so. So I didn't even know that was part of your repertoire.
Have you been wanting to get to that?
Yes,
I guess,
absolutely.
yeah.
Well, because that was always the goal. Like,
Right.
even when I was at the Ring of Honor dojos to train to be a wrestler, I didn't know that I was going to end up being a host of a show. Like, that was never in the cards.
She had blue hair, and she had to get her hair dyed that week.
Yeah.
Oh,
like,
wow.
Right.
They told me that I was going to be on TV, and they were like, you have to get your hair dyed by Saturday. And I was like,
Okay. Right? Yeah, like, yeah, that's the way
But
it is.
actually, so like from the outside looking in, like both ways you stood out to me. Like when you showed up at a show, I remember the blue hair, and I was like, oh, who's that? Like you just stood out. I can't remember RJ, and they were like, that's Dak's girlfriend. She's going to be doing the dojo, and you stood out. But the same way, when the first like video I saw of like you doing the interview and with the glasses and it was and the bow tie, it was just like it was different. You know, I remember seeing the video. It was like, who's that? And then someone said, oh, that's it. She had the blue hair, and I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
You know, so like both ways, you jumped out.
But it's funny how, and this happens to anyone that's out there thinking about getting involved or breaking in, this happens often. They make you go out of your comfort zone.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, whatever. I don't know how long you had that blue hair, but you probably had been
3
quite
years.
attached to it.
Oh, wow.
Right, attached to it. And it's like, you know, same with me. Like, I have a high top fade. We need that to come off. Like, we need the beard to come off. You know, and it's
Excuse
like,
you? You need
okay, right? Yeah, but there's the opportunity because it's about, like, how flexible is this person?
Yeah.
How flexible is this person who probably has had this blue hair for who knows how long? To now, you know, be like, you know, begrudgingly, okay, or sure, I'm ready to go. Let's go. Let's do it. All right, I'll be there by Saturday with my hair, you know, dyed a different color. So
You have to see if someone is willing to rise to the occasion.
indeed,
Because there are a lot of people that aren't.
yeah, or who knows? They could have actually been seeing how willing you were, which led you to now your ultimate goal, which is this match with like a legend. Okay, Angelina Love, we know her, you know, for years.
Yeah, we were just talking about her a couple of weeks ago. What a delight she was to work with.
Yeah, so
We-
you
we
know.
just got in
Yeah,
here.
we worked with her a bunch. Yeah,
So
she's
that's a
been great.
lesson for all of you out there watching and listening to Quinn's, you know, ascent, as it were. You sometimes got to do things that you don't want to do. You sometimes got to chop off your hair or dye your hair or start out being an announcer and have people take mics from you. But, you know, if you just keep on hustling and grinding, good things come from that. So
A lot of the time you
Yeah.
have to do things that you don't want to do. But if you do them to the best of your ability, people will notice.
yeah,
That's very true.
Yeah.
Very good advice.
indeed.
It's all right advice.
but yeah, the goal is always to wrestle.
Real quick, I don't want to move off of this. Real quick, up until this point, had you had any matches with like notable figures in the industry? Is this like your highest profile? Is what I'm trying to get at. Like, where does this stand in your?
So this is definitely my highest profile match because one, it's with a 7-time world champion, and two, it's on television.
Yeah, doesn't get much more high profile than that.
I was actually signed to an exclusive contract to Ring of Honor from the very beginning. So I wasn't allowed to take indie bookings, and then I was allowed to take indie bookings very shortly for a period of time last year, and now I'm no longer allowed to take them again. But last March, I got to go to Barbados, and that was the last match that I actually wrestled. It was the first match I had wrestled in a year, and then also the last match that I have wrestled in a year. So in a 2-year time period, just that one match in Barbados. I did win the ECWA Women's Super 8 Championship. I am also a former women's champion, and I feel like people forget that all the time. People are like, you should just stick to interviewing. Angelina's a 7-time world champion. It's like, I'm also a former world champion.
Yeah, that's definitely noteworthy.
Little
And
fire coming out in there.
well,
Wow.
you know, some of us didn't know that, and you
Yeah.
know, with also kind of the I hate to use the term women's revolution, but with everything that we've been seeing a lot of women do in the industry, it kind of opens the doors. I remember right before she left, people were talking about Renee Paquette, who's been a guest of MCW, like,
Yeah,
is she going to start
my hero,
tangling?
My idol.
Mine too. Mine too.
Yeah.
Like, seriously. You
Fashion
know?
icon.
Yeah, and boy, did she pick a winner. Okay, as far as her man's concerned, but right before she got out of her role primarily with WWE, a lot of people were percolating online about like, wow, I wonder if Renee would mess with Ronda Rousey or something like that, something that would be a total mismatch. And I remember she tweeted back, she'd be like, I'd love to hook it up eventually in some capacity. So it's just really refreshing to see you start where you started in the public eye, where you're moving to, and the possibilities for where you're going to go are kind of endless. It's...
Thank you. I think of it that way, too. People ask me all the time. They're like, do you think you're going to go back to, like, just hosting the show, or do you think you're going to be a wrestler full time? And I'm like, I'm not honestly very concerned about it right now.
You can do whatever. You can do whatever.
You do whatever you show. I think I've done every role here at MCW. So you show up and you do what they tell you to do. I get it.
That's
Exactly.
right. That's right.
Well, that's
It's
awesome.
all about being a team player.
Yeah, really. Yep.
And Dak, just a acai moonsault off of that. Any besides, I mean, obviously Gresham at the 19th anniversary must have been a huge milestone for you,
my
because
God.
that man and that match too. I highly recommend that. If you didn't see it, it was a highlight of the show for me, honestly.
Tope Suasleepa. I remember it was such a good call. It was such a good call. It's stuck in my brain.
Was that Ian?
That was
no,
Rocky.
It's Caprice.
Oh,
I
Rocky?
thought it was Caprice.
Oh, was it?
I think it was Caprice. Tope Suasleepa.
I was so escalated. I was so escalated watching. I can't remember who it was.
Yeah, well, it was a great match for me. But any milestone matches or career
man.
highlights, championships that you?
I feel like I have the match of my life every year or so. So I'm always trying to have the match of my life, and I'd say this match probably was the match of my life. I feel like in football growing up, I lined up across from guys that were future all pro offensive linemen in the NFL. In college wrestling, I've wrestled against future world champions and future UFC champions. I've competed against top tier athletes, and Gresham is right up there in that upper echelon with the highest of the high athletes that I've competed against. It was it's one of those matches where it sucked to lose, but walking back through the curtain,
You were a winner.
Yeah,
You both won. It was a win for wrestling, just in general. The match was. That's why I keep touting it. And I'm not surprised that you mentioned that one. It's kind of like one of the most memorable matches you've had to date. It was great.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was like it's one of those things. Like when I walked out, I wasn't as good of a wrestler as when I walked back.
Yeah.
So like I felt like I still improved. Like it really sucks to lose. But...
Yeah, two good-looking athletes too. Both of you guys are very well put together. Gresham's done a lot of work over the past year.
Yeah.
He is like a sight to behold.
He's a little bulldog.
When I did the power bomb off the second rope, people don't realize how heavy Gresham is because he's got all that muscle. He is a strong athlete. Like he is a
beefy man.
stout athlete.
Yes. Yeah, and you're a tall drink of water yourself, so I'm sure he had.
That's a long way to pull him up there
exactly,
too.
Yeah, so definitely recommend that, and we want to continue talking with y'all, but I think we need to pause one more time for a little internet station identification. So we'll be right back with Dak and Quinn.
We hope you're enjoying this week's episode of the MCW Cast. At MCW Pro Wrestling, much like many small businesses throughout the country, the pandemic has presented many challenges. For a company like ours that hosts events with live audiences, the impact has been even more severe, and all of our forms of revenue have been cut off. In order to continue to engage with our fans on a regular basis, we made the decision to begin to produce the MCW Cast and are providing it for absolutely no cost on Facebook Live, Twitch, YouTube, and SoundCloud. If you'd like to support us during these challenging times, you can do so in several ways. The most popular way is to buy us a coffee to help fuel the cast. Just go to buymeacoffee.com/MCWcast, and for just $3, you can buy the cast a coffee, or you can choose to become a member of the cast for just $5 a month and receive several special perks. That's buymeacoffee.com/MCWcast. You can also contribute directly on Cash App, MCW Wrestling, or on Venmo, MCW-Wrestling. You can also show your support for the MCW Cast while sporting some great gear by going to teespring.com/stores/MCWcast to pick up a full line of official MCW Cast merchandise, from coffee mugs and face coverings to t-shirts and sweatshirts. Also, don't forget to comment in the threads on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch to get your questions answered on a future episode. And you can also send us a tweet using the hashtag AskMCWCast. Thank you for your support, and now, back to the show.
All right, we are back with Dak Draper and Quinn McKay, and we were just talking about your time in Ring of Honor and some of the opponents you faced and who you will be facing in the future. So I want to talk for a little bit about some things some interests you might have outside of Ring of Honor.
Right.
And I'm going to start with you, Quinn, because there's something in your past that that speaks to me, something I've always been interested in. But I found out that you were a former roller derby player.
Yeah, I was. I played for 8 years, actually.
Wow.
Yeah, oh, well, that's me.
That's you.
That's me.
Look at that. Look at her face.
I stalked your Facebook. I'm sorry.
No, please.
Wow.
Thank you. Yeah, taken by the lovely David Strong. That's number 44, the Fabulous Flash. She existed before Quinn McKay did, but was definitely a part of forming who Quinn McKay is, because I think that I learned how to showboat out there like that because I was a jammer. But yeah, I played for 8 years for Springfield Roller Derby, and then there was like another team for a while that split off from Springfield Roller Derby because they had drama and they wanted to create their own team, and I skated for them for a little bit because I was too much of a rock star.
Of course, she was going to join the team with the most drama.
And then, well, at the time it seemed like they had less drama, but I ended up going back to Springfield Roller Derby, but I absolutely loved it. Roller Derby was one of my first passions in life.
Did you ever think about joining Charm City Roller Girls here in Baltimore?
Actually, yes, to the extent that I secretly went to some practices last year before the pandemic started. Ooh. And I don't know, because it's kind of dodgy, whenever you're under contract, because technically you're not supposed to do anything that puts you at risk, but it's not like roller derby puts me any more at risk than playing a game of pickup softball or something like that.
I'm gonna tell you right now, look the other way. It's nice to dream, you know what I'm saying, but you don't want to jam yourself up at all.
But I realized that, and I walked away from it without, I hadn't even. Basically, I passed all of my minimum skills testing. They were like, oh, my God, you're way better than we thought you were. And I was like, yes, I've been telling you I played for almost a decade. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, I just don't have time. I'm sorry. Yeah. And then the world shut down. So, but I love it. So I just love to skate. I've skated my entire life. Me too. I've had skates on my feet since I was 4.5 years old. I've always loved it.
Yep, me too. I loved it, and I've always I don't know why I never did roller derby. I've always been into it.
Why haven't you gone for Charm?
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like I probably missed that window.
No, you could totally do it.
I would love to, but when I found that out about you, I was like, oh my God, she was in roller derby. This is awesome. Even a bigger fan now because of knowing that about you. So, and that probably helped prepare you for what you would face in training in wrestling too, right?
Yeah, I think that I was much more predisposed to learning how to take proper bumps because I already knew how to I already had good body control. Yeah. Because in roller derby, people are actually trying to hurt you all the time. So whenever they're checking you with their body, they're actually skating in at you as fast as they can and hitting you as hard as they can. So I'd already had some people trying to bowl me over and having to roll out of that and have good body control so that I wouldn't get hurt. But obviously it takes a toll on the body. So I broke my fibula in 2015, just snapped it clean in half. I've had more rolled ankles than I can count. I dislocated my shoulder. I almost broke my wrist once. I sprained my wrist so bad that I threw up and had to go to ER. It was bad.
Lovely.
So, I've had some aches and some pains along the way that absolutely set me up for the expectations that I should have going into wrestling.
Wow, I can see a future character where you roller skate down into the ring.
I think a lot of people really wanted me to do that, and they were like, what if you came out in your gear and you came out in your roller derby pads and your skates and stuff? And I was like, you have no idea how long those pads take to put on, take on and off, how limited your mobility is whenever you're in them. And also, if I had on a roller derby pad and I gave somebody a back elbow, I'd bust them open every time. Right. Every time. So there are some issues with it, but I like the idea in theory.
Can I ask, kind of like in wrestling and roller derby, did you ever get kind of checked and then specifically went out of your way to give that receipt?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's all roller derby is.
Good.
Yeah. That's all roller derby is.
Yeah, that's why I think you're tailor-made for it, too. Okay, you want to jam me up? I'm going to go around it when I see you again.
I have pent-up hostility.
Yeah.
Well, and roller derby is, so I was a jammer, so I was a point scorer. There's only one designated point scorer per team on the track at a time. So the other people are just blockers. And then I don't know if you know how roller derby works, but like
Not
once
really, but-
so the jammer gets out, she laps everybody, and then once she's lapped everyone, for every opposing blocker she passes when she comes back through the pack, which is what's the group of blockers are called, every opposing blocker she passes, she gets a point for. So you get 4 points if you pass all of the blockers, because there's 4 blockers out at a time, and you get a 5th point called a grand slam if you also lap the opposing jammer because she's a little slow.
Interesting.
Oh, I never knew how that worked.
Neither did I. I was going to get an education because similar to you, I know someone that's on the Charm City Roller Girls team, and they wanted me to come down to they said we don't always have a loudspeaker guy. They didn't even call it an announcer. They were like, we don't,
loudspeaker guy.
Yeah, we don't even have a guy to call everything out all the time. And don't you do something like that?
So that's what's really funny is that I just found out last weekend because I remember. So I came into roller derby. I was a freshman in college. My brother actually got me involved, as he's gotten me involved in most cool things in my life.
Wasn't
And
he the loudspeaker guy?
He was the loudspeaker guy.
Yeah, that's what they
He was the
guy.
loudspeaker guy. But the reason that I ended up leaving that team in the first place, because I said the other team seemed like they had less drama, was because they fired my brother as the loudspeaker guy, and the loudspeaker guy, the announcer that they hired to come replace him, ends up being a radio engineer, not a radio personality, the engineer for a radio station I ended up working for later on. And I had no idea it was the same guy because I met him like 10 years apart. Yeah, it was an interesting time. I don't like that guy.
Yeah, well, I mean, sometimes unknowingly people kind of like, get set up to jam you up, and not just in the context of, or your family in that case. So it's easy to hold resentment against someone who kind of, takes your spot. So, Dak, with that said, any outside interests? Tara called out, I didn't really stalk you on Facebook. I think maybe I should.
sorry.
It's all good. But any outside interests that,
Well,
you wanna
my main outside interest and hobby is keeping all of her grudges in order. But no,
There's a list.
Oh yeah, you're a Sagittarius.
Yes, you do know
Oh
that.
yeah. Once I found that out, I actually was like, okay, I understand Quinn a lot more than It's been a lot of learning based or discovery based learning with me finding out about you, but I don't want to take the spotlight off of Dak because there's 2 of you and we.
Wait, Sagittarius, that's the one where like you only eat fish, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, we like a Pisces.
I just said that I don't eat seafood, but that's definitely it.
I'd say my interests outside of wrestling, like my hobbies outside of wrestling, I love fishing. I love all sports. I'm always listening to sports radio. I got that from my dad. He always said that sports radio is the best genre of music. And so I've always got some kind of mindless sports radio babble going on in the background. But lately, a lot of my time has been kept up with our little Dak Draper.
His name's Hafthor Babyson, after the world's strongest man, Hafthor Bjornsson, also the Mountain on Game of Thrones.
Oh, there he is.
And
There he is.
What breed is he? I think you were telling me. What breed?
So he's an old English bulldog. He's like a bulldog, but he'll be a little bit taller. So instead of being like short to the ground and it's hopefully so he won't have breathing problems.
Exactly,
So,
because that's the big thing.
And you said he's what, 7 months old now?
Yeah, he's 7 months old. He's laying down on the floor right now. He's
crying
chilling, and he is a little handful. But it's so funny because I'm someone who I've been a wrestler since I graduated college. Like I have not had a whole lot of responsibility in my life. She's the first girlfriend I've ever lived with.
Yeah.
And so I've always had my time has always been my own. And so it has been an adjustment, but it's been so awesome where you give this little creature your time and you try and teach him things, and like sometimes he's bad and it like almost like kind of hurts you because you're like trying to teach him and he's not learning. But then when he does like what you want him to do or he makes you proud, it feels so good. It's like a feeling that you've never felt before. Like it's just like that like love that you feel for like this little creature. So
He's changed my life.
Oh, it's like preparation for kids.
I mean, Tara, you and I are right in the same place. That's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, you wait.
So earlier today, this wasn't on screen, but I got a little fist bump from Hafthor.
he
And
loves
are there other skills you've trained him to do?
He does dance, which is where he spins in a circle.
Oh.
And sometimes he gets real tired, and when he goes to dance, like it's like more of like a side shuffle. It's like the laziest little spin. Like he does not want to dance.
When he's not feeling it, he'll just walk in a circle for you and like side side-eye you the whole time.
Yeah, just be pissed off.
Great.
He also can speak, and he can lay down. Whenever he's in trouble, you can say Hathor touch, and he'll come touch the palm of your hand. Well, if he wants to.
Coincidentally, one of our cats, Cat Draper,
Has picked it up, too.
also does touch now because
Really?
she loves him so much,
Yeah, they're
and
best
she
friends
follows
now.
him around all day. They're best friends. And she'll run from him and go slow enough that like he can see her, because if she goes too fast, he won't see her and he'll just lose interest and not chase her.
Stupid.
So she'll like go slow, and then he'll catch up to her and she'll run away again, but only till he can see her, and he'll catch up. But she watches him do his tricks, and she's started to like try and do the tricks also. So it's really,
Before
really
we
cute.
had a dog, we taught her how to fetch. So, like, she likes to learn anyway, but
Yeah.
I didn't realize that she was going to pick up, like, all this.
I've had a cat that plays fetch before too.
It's
My
adorable.
4 current cats do not play fetch unless it's for
4?
food. Yes,
Okay.
they're.
Listen, once you get a cat, sometimes you just keep getting cats.
And you know what? Once
back.
you have 1 and then you get 2, there's really not much difference between 2 and 3 and 4
There's
and
really
6.
2 has been my max.
Oh,
2
so
has been my
you're planning on
max.
6 in the future.
My mom is actually moving in with me, and she's bringing 2 cats. So
Oh, so
yes,
you are gonna
So you will have
I
6.
legitimately have 6 cats. Yes.
Pretty soon you're going to be a veterinarian with all this experience.
So we bought a big house. It's okay.
They kind of mind their own business. It's really easy to forget that you have, like, a herd.
Yeah, it's only
Yeah.
when like you open the can of food that all of a sudden you look and you're like, wait, are you new? When did you get here? Who are you? Are you the neighbor's cat?
You're just here to eat me if I die.
Thank you, Quinn. And that's
Oh
what
my
makes me so.
God.
That's what
They
makes
do-
me
no,
so
they do
annoyed.
that.
Yeah,
They do
it's
that.
true.
Studies have shown
Yeah.
that a cat is more likely to eat you
Than a
if you
dog.
die than a dog is.
Yeah.
A dog will just lay next to your decomposing
Yeah, the
corpse,
cat will
whereas
start
a cat
to
will
eat you.
start
Yeah, he'll
eating
start to
you.
consume you. You know.
Within 12 hours. They've actually done studies to see how long it will
Well,
take a cat.
Cats are
Cat
carnivores.
Draper trying to eat me?
No.
Well, you're the food.
She licks
you
my
are
nose.
bringing them the
She's
food, like
tasting
so.
you and
In
she's-
their eyes, it's like just like how their mama
She's
used to.
deciding
I
if you're going to
kinda
be the
get that.
appetizer
Yeah.
or the main course.
Because cats are carnivores and dogs are omnivores. So I get
See?
that. Cats are more inclined to just eat meat anyway. But Waffles does do this thing. Her name is not Cat Draper. Her name is Waffles. And she sits on his chest, and she waits for him to start to fall asleep. And once she notices that his breathing patterns changed, she shoves her little tongue up his nose and tries to lick his brain. She does it
She's
every
trying to eat me?
night. She's
Guys,
always
this is
done it.
worrisome.
It's so
You.
weird. It's
No,
so
that
Try-
isn't what she's trying to do. She's trying to take your soul.
I think it's safe to say that,
Well,
you
she
would
already
be-
has my
you would
heart.
be the first course, and you're probably safe. So
Yeah, exactly. They're never gonna finish
Well, you're
eating
all,
you.
you all could feed off of him
That's
if that were
true,
the
yeah.
case. Boy, what a turn this podcast is taking.
Quinn McCannibal over here.
Hey,
Yeah.
Quinn McMuscles.
I appreciate that I'm not the only one that knows about the eating habits of cats. So thank you for that.
You're
I feel
welcome.
validated.
Well, that's
I'm
one
here to
thing
help.
I did know, because I sold a house like 2 years ago. It was a foreclosure to an investor, and they bought it to rehab it. And the neighbors would not stop, when my investors were rehabbing it, would not stop coming over once we got it on the market to tell anybody that was coming into the house that the lady there had died and her cats ate her. You know, and the house was all rehabbed. And then my
Wait, did
investor
you show me that house?
probably.
Oh my god.
I think you
You
probably.
can't visit the sins of the cats on, they're beasts at the
Yeah.
end of the day, guys.
But
Wild
they
animals.
wouldn't stop. They wouldn't stop telling. They wouldn't stop
Oh,
telling.
wow.
I
They
like
wouldn't stop
knew that that's where that story was
Yeah,
going, and I
yeah.
was still
telling.
horrified.
And my investor ended up buying a lot of gift cards for the neighbors,
yeah. Here, guys, come
just
on.
to kind of
Please
like,
shut up
hey,
about
Yeah.
It's not a bribe, but
Yeah.
it's not a bribe.
yeah.
Right.
Can you stop? Yeah.
Right. So so I learned about that then. I was like, the cats ate her.
Huh.
You know.
Happens, yeah.
I feel like they wouldn't have eaten her whole self.
No, they
would
didn't eat
just-
their whole.
'cause
I guess they
they're
just
finicky,
chewed on her,
you know?
but
yeah,
ate her.
and, and they
Yeah.
probably
just
started like just
chewed
with
on
your
her.
cat going up the nose. They probably
Right.
started right with her mouth.
Yeah. I guess when she was found, and that's
Soft, the lips,
And again, obviously, R.I.P.
yeah.
And yeah, at the end of the day, yeah, R.I.P.
Like,
for
I
her.
wonder how much of a person a cat could eat in one sitting, like a finger's
You're
worth.
really worried
or
about
like
this, aren't you?
I don't know.
Do
Yeah,
you
a little
intend on
bit.
dying anytime soon? Because they're not eating you if you're alive. It's only if you've already died. And
Not
I
yet.
feel like unless it's like a double murder, I would have already informed the police of your body.
Yeah, so it's not going to happen, Dad.
Right. See, she's got it planned out. I like
Yeah.
this.
Unless, of
Yeah, I
course-
know.
Not
She's
planned out.
Right,
Let's
no,
not
I
say
mean-
planned out.
Yeah.
She's got like scenarios, working
Remember this
scenarios in her
podcast
head.
when I go missing.
right.
So half Thor gets along with the cats. You have two.
He gets along great. Yeah, we have 2 cats. So she got a cat when she was in college that is like
Keeks, she's 10.
her like best
Aw.
friend.
Yeah.
And I think that cat views me as like the third pet.
Yeah, she
and
does,
then
for sure.
Waffles is the fourth pet, and Half Thor is the fifth pet. Where I think that cat thinks on the hierarchy that like she's a little bit higher than I am.
So she's the queen of the house.
She probably is a little bit. She's very she kind of has the same demeanor as a lot of Kelly's friends, where it's like she's kind of like bossy to me. Like she'll be like, "Hey, you."
She yells a lot. She's cantankerous.
So she's top cat. I mean, there's a hierarchy with cats, and she's top cat.
Yep.
Which isn't. I feel like I should be top cat, but whatever.
You're a snack.
I am a snack. It's true.
Oh, he turned that into a compliment. Did you see that?
I
Well,
thought it
guys-
was a compliment
I
to
set him up
begin
for it.
with.
I was
Honestly,
Yeah.
I forgot we were talking about
I
doing
knew what
that.
Tara was talking about.
Yeah.
You're full of yourself.
So all in all, how is a wrestling relationship? How has it been for you guys?
I
Good.
think that before this, we would both say like, "Hey, don't do it," and it is really hard, especially if like your careers are at different points ever. You just have to make sure that your communication is like the number one thing, and I think that's the thing with all relationships, but especially whenever you're in the media or the public eye at all. You just have to make sure that you're on the same page because other people aren't going to be.
Yeah, and you guys seem like you are. For someone that's been around a lot longer than you guys. Like I started in 1990s. It was so taboo, like people dating and wrestling.
Well, for
But
one
you were
reason,
told not to.
Yeah.
well, that, and also if you brought your girl around,
Yeah.
no knock on him, but Adam Flash, or whoever else. It was like,
Well-
don't bring your girl around here, or else she's gonna be.
There's
I
some
think maybe
sharks.
culture, so
That
it
too,
was,
yeah.
I was in a wrestling relationship, a wrestling marriage, and it didn't work out. Tara, we've all been there.
Sometimes they work out.
Huh?
Sometimes they work.
But no, what seems like me, like in the last 10 years or it's mostly all really successful wrestling relationships. You know what I mean? And that's it. But 20 years ago, 25 years ago, it was very taboo. It never worked out. They always split up, ended up with other people. But in the last 10 or 15 years, most of the wrestling relationships seem to work out.
Yeah, every
You know,
once
seem
in a
to
while
work
you
out
get
well.
like a Paige and Alberto Patron. That was
Right,
nice
but for
and
the
all,
for the most part, in the last, the last decade or so, it seems like
And you-
that taboo is gone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You see
Yeah.
them being successful when they work for different promotions. Like last week when we had Nick and Becky on here, they work for different promotions, and they found a way to make it work. And like you said, Kelly, just the communication is key, and being able to do that. But it's probably good to have like that common interest. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it
no
really
matter
is.
what,
We always know what the other is talking about, and we have a frame of reference
Yeah.
for it, which makes it easier. But I think that it's just hard to date as a wrestler in general because, like you said, you don't want to bring your girl around. But also, if your girl's not in wrestling, you're on the road all the time, or she's on the road all the time, and that's what makes it hard. So you have to be secure in yourself.
Yeah.
It's exactly what I brought up to Nick and
Yeah.
Becky. It was one of my questions for them. Because they're newer.
Right.
To one another, and I was like, it's like the trust factor, like when he's away and you're away, and has anyone ever tested you? Was really the nature of it. But yeah, you guys look to be handling this. You're swimming in it.
It's
Pretty solid, honestly.
I think I was a little more apprehensive than she was just because I started wrestling sooner. And I feel like I'd kind of gotten brought up by more old school guys where it was it was don't date in wrestling. And I used to tell young guys before I'd ever been in a wrestling relationship, don't date in wrestling.
We also both got into wrestling late. We were already both in our mid-20s.
Right.
So.
Yeah. But I think it really I lost my place there. But
It happens.
don't let her interrupt you. No, just kidding. It's something that I kind of came around to, and I think just kind of culturally things shift too, where it just as it becomes more acceptable, then you're not the it's not like, oh, well, those two are the couple. It's like there are a few of them. It's just a little bit more common. And also I think part of it is I think a lot of wrestling relationships can be tumultuous just because it's young people. Like she said that we're in our we started wrestling I was 23 when I started, and she
25.
and she was 25. So we're a little bit older because kids, a lot of times if you don't have relationship experience, you're not going to be great in a relationship. So I think we both kind of had some more relationship experience. And then wrestling is such an insecure business. You're always you're always kind of oh, well, am I good enough and stuff like
People
that.
that live their lives looking for applause.
And
Yeah.
And so when you have someone else there that's either raising you up or you either feel like you never feel like you're on equal footing. They're either above you in their careers or they're below you in their careers. And like I feel like
You're reaching
really,
a hand out either way.
Yeah, you really have to like separate that, and you really have to you have to be secure in who you are and realize that like your spot in a wrestling company or your spot in wrestling and how people perceive you, that doesn't affect your relationship. That only affects your relationship if you let it affect your relationship. Yeah. And so I think maturity is the biggest thing. Like it's almost been like it was like maturity boot camp for me to date in wrestling, especially when we were going through the Ring of Honor dojo system. So we were always busy. Like we weren't making enough money at the time to just wrestle. Like we still had to have a part-time job. We both had a part-time job at a gym, and we were just exhausted. And it was like all of a sudden you're insecure because you're like we were coming into Ring of Honor. We're at the bottom of the card, and so you're at the very bottom. So like everyone else is above you, and if you're not secure with who you are and secure in your relationship, you're going to be like, oh, well, she's probably going to want to run off with this guy who's a big star. Mm-hmm. And it's just I feel like a lot of stuff happens. You fabricate it in your own head. Yeah. And then you through your actions bring it into existence, like through being stressed about it. I see it all the time where I would see this on lower levels where guys would they'd get their girlfriend would get into wrestling, or they would get their girlfriend would get them into wrestling, and then they would immediately start accusing each other of like cheating and stuff with guys. Like,
exactly what I was bringing up to Becky and Nick. You know?
And it's like there was no basis. It's like they were scared that's going to happen, and so they would throw out a wild accusation, and then they're in a fight about something that was never even like thought about happening, but then people are thinking about it, and it's like it's just all maturity, I think. And so like I think. Yeah, the biggest thing is to be mature, which is really hard for me to be mature. Like I'm a very immature person.
I think the atmosphere too of the business, like backstage, probably helps. I mean, it's no secret when I was in the early '90s and I was getting in like Axel and Ian were in ECW, and ECW was getting hot, and I was going up trying to do my young guy thing and get matches there. At that time in that era, it was just drugs and alcohol, and everybody, and you make bad decisions. Like everybody was just partying like rock stars. It really was. And I mean, but of course that's why so many people passed away,
And I think that this generation watched
totally
that.
different. Yeah, it's totally. Yeah. That's what I talked a lot about with Matt Hardy about it. We've had conversations about it, how the difference in it is now, which it's so much better. It's so much obviously better. You don't see people dying in their 40s, in their early 40s anymore. Like if you go back 20 years, and it seemed like every month, whether, Eddie Guerrero, Brian Pillman, it was just one after the other. They were just.
That was a horrible time.
People are just hitting the peaks of their careers now where people were dying before.
Right. So I think that just general where it's just not like that anymore probably helps too. People less inclined partying like rock stars and all, people are going to make not so good decisions. So
absolutely.
All right.
Sure, it all probably comes into play.
Yeah.
That is very astute wrestling and life advice. So thank you for that. And I think, Larry, it is time to segue into
one of my favorite sections.
Other people making life choices.
That's right. Yeah, one of my favorite parts. If y'all are not aware, we do a section of our MCW Cast called the Independent Wrestling Roundup. And that is facilitated by MCW Pro General Manager Phil Stamper. And I always have this joke, it's time for Phil to fill us in. And that's what we're going to do right now. But before we jump into that, any sort of like social media you guys wanted to plug? Obviously, appearances, Ring of Honor is your main focus, but any way that we can follow you and kind of interact with you? Maybe some of our MCW cast members want to ask you a few questions post this episode airing.
Yes. You can follow me on Twitter at Quinn McKay. And that's the only place that you can DM me. My Twitter DMs are open again. My Instagram DMs are closed. You're not going to be able to talk to me there. But you can follow me there at Real Quinn McKay.
And on Twitter and Instagram both, at Mile High Magnum, all one word. And also go to shophonor.com. And if you're a little cold or you want or actually it's getting warm out, if you want a nice short sleeve T-shirt, that Dak Draper T-shirt sure looks great. I wore 3 of them out at the anniversary pay-per-view. So if we don't at least double that number in sales directly from me wasting 3 shirts to wear in my entrance at the pay-per-view, I don't think ROH will let me do that again. So you got to You got to keep buying the shirts so that I can
Yeah.
keep wearing multiple shirts
For
out.
the weird Dak Draper strip tease at the beginning of his entrance.
She loves it. She's still talking about it.
I
See?
watched the striptease over the weekend at a show. So
Lovely.
All right. Well, we're gonna hear what Phil has to say. When we come back, we've got a couple of questions for you, and from our coffee club members too, have some questions for you as well.
Hey everyone, my name is Phil Stamper, and it's time for this week's Independent Wrestling Roundup. Good to be with you this week. One question that I keep getting asked by fans and other people inside of wrestling is, well, what can I do to better support wrestling? What can I do alone that can help put out the word of professional wrestling without me having to dedicate so much of my time for those places that I don't necessarily work for? Or maybe I'm a fan, but I'm in Maryland, but I like this company that I see out of California. Well, what good is it that I interact with anything they post on social media? Well, that's just it. Interact. Like their post. Share if you'd like to, but really that super passive clicking on a like, whether on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, that actually helps what's called an algorithm behind the scenes on social media. It's like a weird catch-22. You post something on social media, and so people start to see it. Well, not everybody sees it. The algorithm selects sort of, well, who normally engages with this person or this kind of message. So then if people start liking it, well, then that actually helps that algorithm go, oh, wait a minute, more people might like it. So it starts spreading it more and more and more. So really, if you're looking for an easy way that you can help support professional wrestling, click like. That's easy. That's super easy. It's super passive to do. I encourage you to do it. I do. When I'm scrolling on my Facebook feed or Twitter and Instagram, if I see something wrestling related, I just click like. It's super, super easy to do. Let's go ahead and go right on to the calendar. Let's start off with IWTV. Already this week, brand new episodes out from Hardcore Hustle Organization and IWTV's Butch vs. Gore Cassandro Cup. Then tonight, a new episode from New South Pro and a new episode from Heavy Metal Wrestling. Then on Wednesday, new episodes from Limitless's The Road and Paradigm Pro's UWFI Contenders series. Then on Thursday, from Beyond Wrestling, a new episode of their signature series and a new full event called Fool's Paradise. It may be April Fool's, but this is a real event. Then on Saturday, events from East Coast Wrestling Association and Sean Henderson Presents. All available on IWTV.live or on the IWTV app available for iOS and Android devices. Then over on Fight TV, brand new episodes already out this week from Championship Wrestling from Hollywood and Ring of Honor. And then on Friday, events from Georgia Independent Professional Wrestling and Future Stars of Women's Wrestling. So other ways that you can go see events yourself. On Thursday out of Georgia, WWA 4 out of Rhode Island, Extreme Wrestling Alliance, and out of Tennessee, 127 Pro Wrestling. Then this Friday, April 2nd, out of Alabama, Pro South Wrestling. Then out of Alaska, that's right, Alaska, Wrestle Pro returns to Alaska for a tour. Night 1 begins this Friday. Then out of Georgia, Southern Honor Wrestling. Out of Tennessee, Resolute Wrestling and Southern Wrestling Federation. Out of Texas, Texoma Pro. And out of West Virginia, Big Time Pro and Premier Wrestling League Mid-Atlantic. Then over on Saturday night, Wrestle Pro Alaska continues its Alaskan tour. Out of Arkansas, Revolutionary Wrestling Entertainment. Out of California, why do I keep doing that? I'm flipping syllables. Out of California, Cana Pro Wrestling. I'm flipping syllables. It's totally fine. Then out of Georgia, Face to Face Wrestling School, as well as KLT Promotions and Professional Organized Sports Entertainment, as well as Renegade Championship Wrestling, all out of Georgia. Then out of Kentucky, Generation Next Pro Wrestling. Out of New Jersey, Sean Henderson Presents. Out of North Carolina, AIWF Mid-Atlantic and American Lucha Wrestling, as well as Ring Wars Carolina. Then out of Tennessee, Intense Championship Wrestling Asylum, Southern Pride Championship Wrestling, Tennessee All-Pro Wrestling, and Tennessee Wrestling Alliance. Then over out of Texas, Metroplex Wrestling. Out of West Virginia, All-Star Wrestling and Big Time Pro Wrestling. And then out of Wisconsin, Frontline Pro. And then on Sunday, School of Morton returns at 5:05 p.m. Again, School of Morton headed by WWE Hall of Famer Ricky Morton, streaming live to their Facebook page. They're out of Chuckey, Tennessee. Check them out, School of Morton. Well, that's all for me for this week's Independent Wrestling Roundup. I hope you're having a wonderful week, and I'll catch you very, very soon. And big news, we're getting into WrestleMania. So next week, we're going to be talking all about all the stuff that's coming during WrestleMania week, because there's a lot that's going to be happening, not just in Florida, but around the world during WrestleMania week. So very excited to be bringing that to you. I look forward to seeing you. Have a good one.
All right, we're back. So as we can see, Phil, things are percolating all over the country, slowly getting back to business as usual. He runs down a lot of different promotions that are doing things. So, and he has been. I'm really excited about one of the things he mentioned. We are right on the cusp of Mania season, which means a lot of folks will be descending upon Tampa, myself included, representing the ICW No Holds Barred brand. One of the biggest matches we have set for our shows is the return of legendary ECW figure New Jack and the Carnage crew. They're going to be facing the Rejects. But I got to bring up something. The bigger story with this fight is just that New Jack is making a rare appearance, but if we don't know about New Jack's son, drag queen performer from right here in Baltimore, Maryland, Washington Heights, well, Vice covered it. New Jack has more or less disowned his son. I'm not really sure if it's because Washington Heights does drag or what the wherefores and whys of it, but Washington Heights, all right, has gone into business for herself. She took the image announcing that New Jack and the Carnage crew were fighting these other three guys, put an image of herself in full drag on that ICW advertisement and said, Tampa, what's good? But kind of like being like, hey, you know what? Yep. I'm going to be down there. This man who is estranged from me, doesn't even acknowledge me, is going to be down there. Put me in the ring with him.
Let's settle it in the ring.
Is New Jack acknowledged it or no?
Up until this point, I have not seen New Jack acknowledge it, but I'll tell you this much. The wrestling community certainly has acknowledged it, and that tweet got so much traction and so many different people chiming in, I think it would be a dream come true. Maybe not for them to fight, but at least for that confrontation, that stare down, to happen in the world of pro wrestling, which is, I don't know if you guys know, but very similar to the drag world of competition and sort of presentation. To see New Jack in full regalia, gangster regalia, staring down his son in full drag. Wow. Stop the presses. Stop 2021. I think that I could die a happy man just to even see that go down. So
yeah, well, I read an article about that was entitled something like "My dad's a pro wrestler and I'm a drag queen. We're not that different." So you're right.
There you go. Yeah,
that's that similarity, and
you're still in gimmick.
Why has New Jack been out of the ring? He's been out for a couple of years.
Oh, yeah. New Jack just does this. Well, a lot of those ECW guys, with the exception of like Stevie and Sabu, they just I know Sandman will do appearances and he'll really just, they'll
Father
play
Time probably.
Yeah, they'll do the beer, New Jack will, the music will play.
Right.
He'll come out with the garbage can, throw it into the ring. Everyone will powder out. He'll get in. And kind of like we said with Dusty, each person will run up to him, take something, and then go take a bump out of there, But people still love to hear that music,
Easy night.
They
So is Washington Heights going to have another trash can or something, or
but that's what I'm
competing?
saying.
There's a lot of ways this could go.
There are a lot of ways it could go. Hey, I wouldn't mind if Washington Heights just jumped out of the crowd and rolled in there and saw the way that Jerome handled it. Call an audible.
Now, has Washington Heights had any training or anything?
Now I know, from what I understand, they used to play rugby. And rugby ain't no easy sport if you are playing it. No pads.
It's not wrestling.
It's not. Well, it's not wrestling. It's not pro wrestling, but you're really, in that scrum, locked in there, and
Well, you know what? If it doesn't happen in Tampa, Dan, you've got a history with New Jack. Washington
Are you trying to set
here.
something up?
I'm just throwing it out there. If it doesn't work out in Tampa.
She probably will want some answers.
Yeah.
And wanna go at it with her dad.
Speaking of wanting answers, we have some fans who asked some questions for our guests.
Okay.
So and this is for both of you. This is from two of our longtime fans, Mo and Lisa. They'd like to know what wrestler would you love to have a match with, past or present? So if you could have a dream match with anyone, who would it be? Beth Phoenix for you?
Beth Phoenix.
Okay.
1993 Razor Ramon.
Okay.
There
Great.
you
All
go.
right, that was a great
Yeah.
question. Thank you. All right, I have another question. Bucket list items. I'm going to start with you, Dak. What is on your bucket list that Dak Draper would like to do next?
Oh man, on my bucket list, I think that I would like to. I want to climb a mountain, but not Mount Everest. I want to climb. I want to go into the mountains for like at least like a week maybe, and like live off the land. Like I think that'd be really cool, where it's like just me and nature. With some like
Just
not.
him in
What about
nature
Half
is
Thor?
the
Is Half
important
Thor
part.
coming on this journey?
Well, of course, Half Thor comes everywhere.
Half Thor's
so.
trying to electrocute himself over
Oh,
here on his
no.
wiring.
As you can see,
All right, so
sometimes
climbing a
we make it a
mountain.
pain in the ass. We bring Half Thor with
Okay.
us too many
Well,
places, but
I don't know if you've checked it out yet, but at the intersection of where like DC and Virginia is, there's the Billy Goat Trail, and it's on a nice mountain. It's a really strenuous trail. It has great views. There's parts of it that are like up a cliff kind of, so that might appeal to you.
maybe
I've climbed Mount Kenya. If you ever get to Kenya, you should climb
you've
that.
climbed Mount Kenya.
Yeah, I mean,
Wow.
it's pretty.
That's cool.
It's a beautiful sight because, like, the top of it, you're actually looking out over the clouds. It's actually
Oh,
really
that's cool.
amazing. So, very, very cool. But that's awesome. All
yeah,
right, mountain climbing.
I kind of like
okay.
grew up in the shadow of the Rocky Mountains, like right up
Yeah.
against the Rocky Mountains. So like as a kid, you're just kind of always looking like, oh man, that'd be cool. Just go up there and spend
Right.
like a week up there and like just kind of like you and nature. And
Right.
of course, Quinn McKay
Aw.
and Half Thor and Cat Draper.
Quinn McKay doesn't nature very well.
She does not nature
Not
very
for
well.
extended periods
Yeah.
of time.
All right. So, and then I want to throw it to you. What is your bucket list item?
So I don't nature like he does, but I do really want to learn how to fly fish. He was supposed to teach me like 3 years ago how to fly fish, and it has yet to happen. However, I'm always in search of like the best dish in a town, but specifically the best cheeseburger in the world.
I actually read that you've mentioned that in
Yes,
interviews
I'm a
before.
big cheeseburger person.
And I love cheeseburgers too. And we are home to the Bruiser Burger.
Oh, I know.
That is featured there by Jimmy's Famous Seafood.
Look at that.
So it is something.
It is a good burger.
Look how
It
delicious
is.
that looks.
See, doesn't it?
God.
But I had to
God.
finish it, and I had to take some of it home. It's really filling.
That looks amazing.
I
you should
ate it
grab
all
some
in one
Bruiser
sitting.
Really?
So.
Well, you don't eat the bun,
I
too.
don't eat the bun or the
Yeah.
fries, yeah,
Yes.
but I ate it all in one sitting.
I once saw Playboy Bob Starr house a Bruiser Burger. Now he took a break. He couldn't do it all in one sitting. He took a break, and then before you know it, I heard that platter open up again, and Bob, that burger was gone. He was like, "Oh, I got it down.
It was delicious, and not only is it delicious, but $1 from every burger sold goes to the Lymphoma and Leukemia Society in Bruiser's memory.
Wonderful.
That was great.
So in your quest for the perfect cheeseburger, I encourage you to try that one.
Oh, I
out.
absolutely will. I've been meaning to now, and we just haven't had the opportunity. We were just talking about like maybe that's what we'll do today.
I work over in Dundalk actually, but we're all working remotely, and I'm like, man, when I go back to my office, I'm gonna get so fat because I'm gonna go eat all the like
housing
I
Bruiser
literally-
burgers.
Yeah.
I'm right down the street from Jimmy's Seafood, so I'm like, man, it's gonna be hard to resist. So. It's been a deterrent because I've been home for a year, but yeah, I do have an
so
office right
hungry.
down the street.
You guys want to go
It
there?
does
After?
look
You guys
so
want to go?
good.
We're
I
thinking
wouldn't-
about it.
Yeah, I haven't had a Bruiser Burger
They have a
yet.
fantastic brunch too. They've got great food all the time.
I'm
So
a
we
big brunch
can't
person.
thank Jimmy's Famous Seafood enough for all
They
of
are
their
great.
support. But
Yeah.
we definitely recommend their food or food trucks. You can catch their food trucks. They've got like 3 or 4 out every week too.
Do they sell the Bruiser Burger from the food?
I don't
from
think
the
they
food
do a
truck?
Bruiser Burger
You know
on
what they
food truck.
have? They have their chicken with the crab cake on it, and or crab dip. And
Chicken
they have the crab
Chesapeake?
cakes. And
The
then
crab
they
cake
also
egg rolls.
have crabby fries and the crab cake egg rolls.
Yeah, which are ridiculous.
Yeah, they're
Yeah,
really
they're
good.
Yeah,
ridiculous.
check those out.
Yeah.
So
Well, very good. I guess that about wraps this episode up, right?
Oh.
yeah.
I think so.
That
After
is
that,
so-
after
Someone's
that-
getting restless.
Half-
Little
Yeah,
man
that
gives it a little
sounds
shake.
Thor heard burgers and
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
ready.
Oh,
So
he loves a burger.
Oh, he's not allowed to have human food for a while because he embarrassed us at
He
on a
did embarrass
patio
us
the
earlier.
Yeah, he
other
probably
day.
pooed all over the place.
No,
just-
he just has decided that if you have food, he should also have some of that food. And if you don't give it to him, he will yell at you.
Well, rightfully so.
One person in this one of us in this relationship gives him too much human food. I'll let you guys
you
decide
should
who it
stop
is.
doing that, Dak.
No, it is him. It's actually him. Yes. Yeah, it's not me. I'm the
both
good
people.
one.
Right. You look innocent.
Thank
I
you.
can tell.
Thank
Well,
you.
we really appreciate you guys coming in and taking the time.
Yes, yes.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And thank you for joining us once again for the MCW Cast. We'll
Yep.
see y'all
See ya
again
next week.
next Tuesday at 8.